Yeah. So welcome to Real Talk with Eugene, and today I have we're having a conversation of Real Talk, and today I have one of my good brothers, one of my favorite people on the planet, as he likes to say, Michael Masadno Hiraoka, Reverend Michael Masadno Hiraoka. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's a snow day here. Whatever, October something in Colorado. 60-degree drop from yesterday, so just a little shock to the system.
Yeah,
But doing
right.
good.
Yeah. Man, so thank you so much, man, for agreeing to do this one. So I just want to have a conversation with you as we usually do. Now I know that we talked about what we were going to talk about, but I know you and I, so
Yeah.
it can go wherever it goes, and all of that is good, man.
Good.
So let me ask you, Masando. So how do you see life, and how do you see how things are going in life, and all that good? What's up for you? There we go. That's a good one. What's up for you these days?
Uh, well, I mean, are you talking about like the state of the world, or just personally, or what do you think? What do you look for?
State of the world, and where and how you view that personally.
Okay, got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a meme that I saw recently. I think our mutual friend, Reverend Drew Groves, posted that was like a picture of like uh, like the real wall that's being built in our country. That it's not a
Mm,
wall that's along our southern border, but it's a wall that's like dividing our country straight in half, right?
wow.
And I think I'm feeling that a lot. I'm feeling the ways in which um, there's this dichotomy of either or, us or them, left or right, red or blue, and there's very little room for nuance, for complexity, for dialogue. It feels like anything that you can possibly say can become politicized,
Right.
controversial, and used against you. And it's an interesting place to be. Also, given that we're so connected in the world as well, like you would think that with the crazy evolution of technology that we've been experiencing, that we would feel more connected, more compassionate. And I think in many ways that is happening, right? Like, I see that we have been exposed to different aspects of our communities and our societies that we just weren't exposed to before. And that
Right.
is
Yeah.
that is giving us an ability to have more uh, compassion, more empathy, and a greater understanding of just what it is to be a human walking on the earth for different people. And at the same time, man, I just feel like it's very difficult to navigate the ways in which a lot of these stories then get politicized, right?
Yeah.
Like when we're learning about police brutality, when we're learning about you know, kids getting locked up at the border, when we're learning about poverty, when we're learning about different aspects of our society that have, you know, often remained at the fringe, that we're now being exposed to in these sometimes very intimate ways. Um, it's what you see right after that, um, is like picking a side on spinning that in one direction or another based on whatever political affiliation. And that to me is often very frustrating because I think it doesn't allow for the story itself to move us in the direction of healing, to move us in the direction of equity, to move us in a direction where we all can actually create and co-create a world that works for all. it
Right.
I think it sort of pushes us to take a side and then to stick to it. So, you know, how I try to react to it often is to expose myself to both sides as much as I can so
Hmm.
that I know who I'm talking to and that I myself can keep myself in check about my own. So, you know, like on my Twitter feed, I subscribe to an equal amount of very conservative as well as very liberal uh, politicians and other talking heads. just to make sure that I'm hearing what everyone is talking about regardless, right?
Right.
And that to
Right.
me is important in order to really feel connected to the whole, right? Because
Yeah.
even if I don't agree with aspects of the whole, like I need to feel connected to it in some way. And if I can like build a bridge within myself, especially with the
Mm.
point of view that I may not agree with, like in my heart, I'm like, all right, what you're saying, I don't really agree with, but there's something in there, and there's something about you that is still compelling to me. So I still want to connect with you. That's really important for me. I think that's the only way we move forward. I think eventually we're going to get sick of this false dichotomy, right? This idea of
Right.
you always have to pick either or, right? Um, and we're going to move to, I think, a greater complexity that's going to require a little bit more dedication for us to be actual in relationship with each other,
Yeah.
so that we
Truly.
can leave room for nuance, so that we can leave room for dialogue, so we can leave room for us not coming to a conclusion where somebody wins and somebody loses.
Right. One of the things that you said that was so very
To
key,
a new way of
Masadno.
being,
Oh, I'm sorry. What was
where we can
that?
just come to a new way of being, where
Right.
that's not
Right.
the outcome, you know?
And so, to tag along on that, finding out a new way of being. One of the things that you said that touched my heart was, how can I build a bridge within myself?
No doubt.
Because a lot of times, I hear, being a bridge. Let me be a bridge between this and that, but it's an outside thing. It's,
Mm.
between this person and that person, or this way of thinking and that thing, and that way of thinking. And I love what you said, man, about, and in order for that bridge to be built, it has to be built within me first.
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying, man, you've heard me say this before, as we sit and chit chat, that we are living in some great times. As interesting as they may appear, as crazy as they may appear, but I think all of that, which you were alluding to, is gonna help us get to that place where it's not this or them. It's all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trip, man.
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of potential to see ourselves as one living organism, right? And I think the conversation around global climate change, has the capacity to really take us there, right? Because we got this one planet, and we're all making an impact, each and every one of us. And if we're gonna create change around that, if we're really going to care for it in a way that I feel like it's being called out to be cared for, it's going to take all of us, right? And so those borders that get created by these made up lines between countries, between continents, even the ways in which we have really identified ourselves as separate from each other, as
Yeah.
we've had to do, that's gonna go away at some point when we have to work together to really care for this one planet that we have to live, right? And I'm really clear, the planet, the universe, it'll go on without us. The human species is
Right.
a blip, right, in this great story of the universe, right? But I like humans,
Right.
I like this planet, I feel like we have something to offer this great universe, and the ways in which we are embodying consciousness, and how that continues to evolve through these vessels, and I've always just been in love with humanity, so I care for it. I
Right.
want us to continue, but I know in the big scheme of things, we don't matter. But but at the same time, we do, each and every
Right.
person and each and every being and each and every manifestation of consciousness does matter. Every little piece does matter. So I just feel like we're moving to a place where we have a lot of potential, right? There's so much
Truly.
potential for us to really take whatever crisis that we are being challenged to look at and evolve and heal and come together. But there's also
Yeah.
that same potential for us to choose, whatever, the dark side or whatever, and go into more battle, more just seeking to protect myself and just a small tribe of people around me, and to feel like that's the most important. So, like it is interesting times, man. Like, what
It
interesting
really
times.
is.
And I feel like, from a soul level, we all kind of are signed up to be here at this particular time with this particular configuration of human beings to work this stuff out, right? Like every
Absolutely.
generation sort of has its mission, and I feel like, we're starting to feel that right now. Like, okay, we have some stuff to do together, so let's do it. Let's do the damn thing.
It is an interesting time, right? I keep saying, that we are all of us are here at this interesting time because of all the stuff that is going on. And so one of the things I like to talk about is with all that's going on here, so who am I to be with all of this going on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I find myself sometimes, my beingness being pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And then being okay with me being pissed off, because then that gets me to the place of, well, do I want to feel pissed off, and how does that help me in the situation? Not so much the situation itself, but does it help me? And then how can I show up?
Mm-hmm.
In a Facebook post I did today, basically I was saying that everybody is special,
Mm-hmm.
because we are one of a kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, that nobody's special, but we're all special. We don't really matter, but we all do. And since we're here, as I love what you said, with the universe, the earth, it's going to do what it's going to do. As that was Ray Charles, like, you got to let it do what it's going to do. And so here in this little blip of time, so how can I show up, to assist in this thing called humanity in coming together? It amazes me, man, to look at people, and they're, people are fighting and just upset about whatever. But when it really comes down to it, everybody values the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody values the same thing. Everybody values peace. Everybody values, kids having a place to eat, having a place to live and food to eat. Everybody values this. And as I say this, God, it's a trip, dude, that this conversation that we're having has been going on forever, it seems like.
Forever. Yeah, so it's an interesting time, and it's totally regular.
Right? It's an interesting time and totally regular.
Like, we've been doing this thing. We've been trying to work this out for a long time, right? I feel like we're coming around the spiral again, I almost feel like we're almost even coming around the spiral of like that civil rights movement, like, where we're starting to wake up to like the ways in which the public needs to take a little bit more of the lead, right? There's times in which, like, we need to make our democracy work for us again. Right. And I think we're on another layer of that. And I feel like every generation needs to sort of step up and take everything that's come, that we're building upon from the past, but also make sure that it continues to include more and more people into the future. Right. And so I think we're kind of at this time where we're recognizing that there are communities that are still seeking to have the same rights as everybody else. Like, the Supreme Court right now is, in dialogue, and we won't even know probably the outcome for 6 months, but they're in dialogue around LGBTQ rights, right? And whether or not employers have the right to fire somebody based on gender or based on sexual orientation, right? That's something that's happening right now in 2019. You know what I mean? And
crazy.
So that matters, right? Like, so it matters that we're paying attention to that. It matters that we are ensuring that we're participating in these conversations. And just because it may not affect us, right, doesn't mean that, like, it doesn't matter to the whole, right? Because if we're one living, breathing organism, and there's some aspect of ourselves that, like, is needing care, right? That is like, we need to ensure that we're caring for the whole and every part of that whole, right? So that to me is really, I don't know. That's another aspect of our time, is like, I feel like, how do we grow our identity that's beyond just ourselves and the things that just affect us, right? And I think people have been doing that for a long time. But how do we actually see ourselves as part of something greater than ourselves? You know, how do we feel affected by the things that may not directly affect us and act as if it was directly affecting us? You know what I
Right.
mean? And be an ally in that way.
And the acting and being an ally, that takes courage.
Dude, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because there's this deep part of us that also just wants to fit in, right?
Yeah.
Also just wants to avoid conflict,
Right.
also just wants to cruise along and make sure that our life is going okay. But I feel like from a spiritual standpoint, I think there's a reason why these ideas of not just service, but recognizing that, like, you know, when when you look at, like, Yeshua's main messages, right? When he was doing his ministry thing, right? Like he was really ministering to the folks on the fringe of society,
Right.
right? Like the prostitute, the pauper, the Samaritan, who was, like, uh, at the time, the community that was, like, the most excluded in that
The
during that
outcast.
time,
Right.
right? Like during that context, the Samaritan were the folks, that were discriminated against the most, right?
Right.
They are on the fringes of society, and I think that's still our job, like 2,000 years later,
Two
right? Like,
thousand years later.
yeah, 2,000 years later, we're having these same conversations, right? We're having these same conversations, and how do we uphold the dignity of everyone? And how do we ensure that the ways that we have benefited from it, like that we're making sure that we utilize that for the whole, for the greater good continually. And that's hard to do, right? Like, it's hard to do all the time. Like, I just want to sit at home and watch Netflix often. Um, and
Yeah,
so,
I know what
I
you
think
mean.
but I think it's hard. It's hard to not see it. That's what's interesting about this time. It's
Whew.
like you can't. It's very hard to be a human and not be aware anymore. Like, you got to be
True.
crawling into a cave
Right.
in order to not see this stuff. And that's what I think is actually more interesting about this time than times in the past. This information age is exposing us to so much. So it's hard. It's much harder for us to put our head in the ground
Exactly.
and look away.
Exactly. We can try to ignore it, but nah, because it's there. It's just there.
Yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing about technology these days, because it's almost forcing us to take a look at it.
Hmm.
Which is a very good thing. Now, I know, I'm one of those as well, that there are some people who just don't want to look at it. However, I can't ignore it. And so I have to either speak out about it or step up. I love what you said. Every new generation, but not every new generation. I think every generation has to man up or woman up.
Whoa, man.
To step up, to talk about this stuff. Who am I to be in this, and what is mine to do? How can I love what you said, man? How can I bridge this within myself?
Mhm.
Yeah, man, because there's stuff going on.
Yeah, and that's the spiritual journey, right? Like, I
Right.
believe we're really gifted by taking part in these ways of being, these ways of seeing, these ways of bridging, right? I feel like there's an actual limit to only focusing on our own personal liberation, right?
Right.
I think, that's what the Buddhists found, right? Like, the Buddhists went from the Hinayana to the Mahayana path, right? The Hinayana was very much about one's own personal enlightenment. And as they began to continue to practice, they recognized that there is no enlightenment for myself, right? Like, we are all so interconnected
Right.
that, like, there's only, like, the only true liberation is the liberation of all sentient beings from suffering.
Exactly.
Right. And so,
Exactly.
the Bodhisattva vow is a vow to be reborn, because the Buddhists believe in reincarnation,
Hmm.
to be reborn again and again and again until all are free.
Right.
Um, yeah, Brother Ali says, can't nobody be free unless we're all free?
Right.
There's no me and no you, there's just us. Right.
Right.
Like, I think that's part of the spiritual path. I think we get to the point where, like, okay, I've done this work on myself, but why? Like, for what?
Right.
right? You know, like, great. I feel more free. I feel more empowered. You know, I feel more connected. Now what?
Now what do I do? Right, right. Yeah. It's interesting also, like in the Christian, faith and teaching is like, it doesn't talk about just one's own salvation. Nobody's free because, the definition really of salvation is, to become free. But
Mhm,
nobody's free until we're all free.
mhm.
You know, how cool is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How cool is that?
yeah,
Now that I'm free, what's mine? How can I help of others?
yeah,
And
and
like you said, man, that's that spiritual path. That's that path.
yeah,
Of let me share this.
yeah. And I think then we come to
Mm,
know that so much of our own learning comes from others and through others.
absolutely,
And there's always a two-way street going on, right? Like,
always.
in every interaction, there's the capacity to be woken up by another.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what a
Ooh.
lot of social justice work is actually all about, is just being in the beloved community and recognizing that no matter who we're interacting with, no matter who we're interfacing with, like, that is an actual emanation of the divine, and we
Yeah.
have the capacity, if we're willing to be blessed by that, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and to know that, yes, we can equally be a blessing,
Right.
but we got to combat some of that, savior mentality too, and recognize that, like, the humility that's required is what allows us to be blessed by each and every person and each and every interaction that we have.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it too, is you recognize that, like, everything in the world has the capacity to wake us up. Everyone in the world has the capacity to be a blessing.
Yeah. And what that takes for everyone, for people to wake me up or to me be awakened to whatever that person is saying or doing, takes a conscious effort on my part to open my heart.
Yeah.
To open my heart so that I can hear you. So that okay. And as you said earlier, man, I may not really agree with everything that you're saying, but I'm open to being your brother, to being your sister, to being in this vibration of love. And we're talking about not that kind of love that is wishy-washy and all of that, but that love that stands firm.
Mm,
That love that stands committed to this to this growth. That love that says, no, I'm not taking that.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool stuff, man.
man. It's an interesting time. I am really grateful that you and I get to be walking along this
Right?
path of life together,
Yeah.
fellow travelers along the path.
Yeah.
We all are walking our own paths, but thank God we're also walking that alongside so many folks that um, they have the ability to help us along the way, right? Because we
Yeah.
have to lean into each other during these times too.
Right?
We have to ask for help. We have to combat the isolation that can be so easy when we're just looking at our phones all day, these
Right?
years, which I am so guilty of.
Mm,
I get so trapped in that often, without even knowing it. So
yeah.
yeah, really grateful just to be waking up with you, man.
Yeah. A number of years ago, man, you said something within our Sangha group, right? And it was about the river and looking around.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm gonna have you. I'm gonna in this particular conversation. If you can remember that, of course you can, because you're Masando. Um, with what that is all about, because it informs and it really talks about in a nutshell what we've been talking about this last half hour or so.
Yeah, that came from a Hopi prophecy
Mm.
that was actually written in 99, I believe, or 2000. This was written in 2000. And that's where that term, well, I'll leave the punchline for the end. So
Okay.
I'll just read it out.
Okay.
Thank God for the internet. I was just able
I
to.
was gonna say, God, that was quick.
So this is written by some Hopi elders in June 8th, 2000.
Oh, happens to be my birthday, June 8th.
Okay. Well,
See?
makes
Boom,
sense.
bam.
You've been telling people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside of yourself for your leader.
Whew.
Then he clasped his hands together, smiled, and said, "This could be a good time. There is a river now flowing very fast. It is so great and swift that there will be those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel that are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. No, the river has its destination.
Yeah.
The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above the water. And I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey come to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Yeah. 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 Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
It's still time.
It's still time. It's still time. Yeah. My brother, thank you so very much for taking out the time to be with me. Yeah, and just having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yeah, man. So I'll be seeing you around, dude.
Of course.
Cool. Peace, man.
Later.